Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 55 called Janna. On this episode, I'm partnering with Extend Fertility, which was founded on the premise that democratizing egg freezing could ultimately change the fertility industry and deliver better results. Their co-founder, Dr. Joshua Klein, who is near and dear to my heart because he was actually my doctor, and you may have heard me interview him in episode 36 of this podcast, is a brilliant, supportive, and overall awesome doctor. And he's a bit of a disruptor because when he observed that IVF's success rate was low for women over 40 and its high cost was disappointing for doctors and patients alike, he took matters into his own hands. He saw the opportunity to help women think more proactively about their fertility, and he founded Extend Fertility, which began offering egg freezing at 40% below the national average. By 2017, they were the largest egg freezing practice in the nation. And today, they've expanded to offer a full range of infertility services, including IVF, in a small practice environment that's more personal, higher quality, and more data-driven. So to make an appointment with Extend or find out more, go to extendfertility.com and make sure to tell them that Infertile AF sent you. Thanks. Okay, guys, so Janna works with a very dear friend of mine, my friend Millie. Hi, Mills. And today she is going to tell us her story. She came over to my house actually a couple months ago. Remember when you could go to people's houses and actually see them and hang out with them and give them a hug? Yeah, so that happened, and she's incredible. So she's going to tell us her story of going through 6 years of infertility. So this is a story of IVF and IUIs and mini IVF and lots of heartbreak and nothing working and ultimately adoption. So Janna is much cooler than I will ever be, so I'm going to let her tell it all in her own words. So without further ado, this is Janna's infertility story. So thank you for coming over.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm excited.
So we have a mutual friend, Millie.
Yes.
Who works with you and is one of my favorite humans. So thanks, Millie, for the introduction.
100%.
I know you have a really interesting story to where you are now. So
yeah.
We'll just start at the beginning.
I love it.
Did you always want to have kids growing, as a, girl growing up?
Yeah. I mean, from the time I was little, I always was gonna have a family one day, and of course always wanted that to happen. I never really took the traditional route. I mean, I went to college. I mean, I'll dive right in. My husband and I, we met in our 20s. We kind of grew up together. He was in a band. I was actress / worked in marketing / worked in the nightclub business / waitress. I mean, you name it. I did a little bit of everything.
All of those things sound very fun.
All together.
I'm sure you have some good stories.
100%.
Next time we hang out.
Yes, exactly. Millie's favorite story. I was a waitress in the Bada Bing on the first season of The Sopranos.
Stop!
Fun fact.
What?
Yeah. So we'll talk about that later. But
oh my God.
So did all that for a very long time, and then Joel and I met. Actually, I was dating the owner of his record label. Okay. That's how we met, and he was in a band.
What's the band?
Toured all over. They were called Goaty Hook.
Okay.
Pop punk band.
Okay. Cool.
Back in the day, yeah. And then we never kind of did the traditional thing. He ended up moving to New York. We were all trying to figure out what we wanted to do with our lives, do for a living, did a little bit of everything. But we always, we didn't get married until we were, until we were 30. And then, by then, I mean, we'd always kind of tried to have kids, but it just, careers started taking off, and we, kind of kept trying, but didn't really massively pursue it. We were okay, when it happens, it's supposed to happen.
Right.
But it never really did. Careers kind of took off. And then finally we were okay, years later, we've always wanted to have a family. We always wanted this to happen.
Right.
So I started we started again, being very specific about, the fun of timing and let's time sex and let's put it in a book and, all that fun stuff that makes it so romantic.
So hot. So wait, before that, you had never, it was like you weren't trying, but you weren't not trying.
Correct.
Like that kind of phase.
Yep.
And then how old were you when you buckled down and you were like, shit, we need to like get on this?
Probably mid to late 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So then jump ahead, I was like, okay, we need to try fertility. So I had done one round of IVF, my body like full on IVF. My body rejected it and it was like, fuck you, I hate you, I can't take all these drugs.
Really? So when you went into the doctor, did they say why it wasn't happening?
No.
Did they diagnose you with anything?
Nope.
Or like,
I had all the tests. Joel had all the tests. Okay. It was funny. We were watching a commercial the other night. He's like, oh, that's a first hospital I went to get my swimmers tested.
My swimmers.
Yeah.
I love it.
So nobody could tell us anything.
Okay.
Everybody was always just like, I knew my mom had kind of had problems with pregnancies. Yeah. And wasn't sure if I was going to have the same thing, but clearly, all the time trying to get pregnant, it never worked. So I had done one round of like full blown IVF.
Did you go right into IVF?
Yeah.
No IUIs or anything like that?
Full on.
Or anything?
No.
Okay. How did you feel about doing it?
At that point, I was just kind of like getting nervous because I was like, why isn't this happening? What's going on? And then I thought back to like my mom having problems and I was just kind of like, okay, if we're going to do this, like, I'm one of those people that's like, head on, let's just do this.
Right.
Let's just try it. Let's dive in. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
So I knew that at the time, Joel, my husband's insurance, they covered like up to a certain amount, which is just basically one round of IVF.
Okay.
So, met with the doctors. We went, researching all the hospitals in New York. We went to Columbia because supposedly it was like the best.
Okay.
They had, an office downtown in Tribeca and it was close to work. And I was like, this is great. Did the whole thing, all the drugs, everything.
How did your body react to all
My
that
body
stuff?
was just like, I've never done well with drugs. I wasn't the kid who always like went off and did drugs because my body never liked it. So my body was basically like,
no,
okay. It's not going to happen. Okay. So we had gotten to the very end and they were like, your body's not reacting. So we're not even going to do the extraction at this time. Okay. We're going to do an IUI.
Okay.
So they ended up doing that instead.
Well, you're the first person I've met that did IVF and like back to IUI. Yeah. It's usually a progression.
100%. Yeah. Because they were like, we don't even want to, it's not progressing like we thought it was going to. It's not working. Like your body is basically like not doing what it's supposed to. Okay. So they did the IUI, didn't take.
Yeah. How did you feel after that?
I was bummed, but I'm very much like, I very much have tunnel focus. Mm-hmm. I skip ahead. I did fertility for 6 years. Mm-hmm. So after that IUI, like we didn't have money or anything else to do full-blown IVF anymore. Insurance didn't cover it. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the money. Right. We were just like, what the hell are we going to do? Yeah. So I had actually met with some of my friends, talked to some of my friends. They were like, you need to talk to, these people. There's this thing called mini IVF. Mm. There's this place called New Hope Fertility Clinic that's in Columbus Circle. Okay. And they do, basically it's called mini IVF because they don't use as many drugs. Mm-hmm. They monitor you, it's not like the full blown thing. Yes. They still have the extractions. They still have like some drugs and all that kind of stuff, but it's a little more controlled with all that shit that they put in your body. Right. So from there, I went there. I was like, this is great. They were like, we can definitely make this happen.
I know it's less expensive, obviously.
100% less expensive. So I was like, this is affordable. We can do this. This is great. Let's do this. Mm-hmm. So at the time, 6 years ago, they like to basically build up your eggs before they send them all out in one batch to test them to see what was good, what wasn't. Okay. So I can't even tell you how many rounds I went through, 7 a.m. every morning. I'm up in Columbus Circle mm-hmm. and I work in, all over Manhattan because I was a freelance executive producer at the time. Right. So up there doing, all that, getting tested, monitored, all that. And then I think we had 6 eggs. And then they sent them out and only one of them was good. Mm. So from there, they were like, what do you want to do? I kept on because we kept that egg in reserve. I kept on. I think I tried 5 more times. Mm-hmm.
Were they creating embryos or just the eggs at that point?
Sorry, embryos.
Embryos, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So they would take it, they would fertilize it, but then they wanted to send them out to make sure.
Like a batch testing. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that before.
So from there, we only had one embryo that was good. We tried a bunch more times. Things didn't happen. Like the eggs wouldn't take. They wouldn't become embryos. You know, the same failed like forever. So at that point, I started getting tired. And that was like maybe 4 years into it. And then...
That's a long time.
Yeah. I mean,
can we unpack that a little bit? Like,
I know I'm like speeding ahead the Cliff Note version.
I don't want.
But
I mean, you go with whatever. Pace you want,
no.
I don't want to breeze through like some of the things that I think are really important to talking about. Is just what it was doing to you emotionally, and what was going on around you. Like a lot of people, you know, your friends are starting to have babies. And,
Totally,
you know, you're seething inside. Like what was going on, and relationship wise. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's true because I mean, I'm very much type A personality. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. We're going to keep doing this, you know, and I make friends with everybody. So I made friends with all the nurses and I'd come in every day and they'd be like, hey, Janna, what's up? You know, and we'd hang out and, you know, they're drawing my blood and looking at my goods. And we're all like, you know, one big happy family. But yeah, I mean, it sucks because my friends are having kids. Everything's, you know, coming up roses and nobody understands really. I mean, like I would come home and secretly like cry in my room after my extractions when I'm in like massive pain and at home by myself because after the extractions, you know, my husband's at work and I'm just coming home bawling, crying because I'm in pain emotionally and physically. And I mean, it sucks because nobody really gets it unless they've gone through it.
Completely.
Like, everybody's like, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's horrible. Like, I'm sorry that this is happening. But, like, it's the tale as old as time. Like, nobody really gets it unless they've gone through it.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
It really does because you're alone and, you know, I like to talk about things, but... you know, I'm also super busy. So it's not like I can seek out some group to go sit and kumbaya about how much this sucks.
Right.
Because I just am not that kind of person.
Yeah. And even if you do want to talk about it with your friends, I ran into this problem where there's only so much you can say. And there's only so much they can say.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Exactly.
But like you said, it's like, unless you're in it, there's like just something missing that you like need.
Yeah.
I was interviewing somebody yesterday and she said something that no one has said before that I thought was so interesting, was that she had 8 miscarriages.
Oh,
and she was saying she had a lot of friends who had gotten pregnant at the same time and then they went on to have their babies. And she was like, now when I see those kids, I'm always remembered that's the age my kid would have been.
100%.
With like 4 different of her friends' kids. And that broke my heart. I mean,
it's
it was
so
just
true.
like, I know
it's so
that
true.
feeling.
No.
Like, that could have been my kid.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, it kills you because you try to think like, okay, just one more time, you know, but like it kept happening so much. And, you know, my husband was like, trying to be there for me. He's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. He's like, you know.
Right. So were you getting pregnant or you weren't? It just wasn't working?
No.
Okay.
I was trying to build up embryos, you know, so they could, because they were like,
your body was slow to react.
Yeah. And I was producing eggs.
Yeah.
And then when they would try to make the embryo, you know, it just wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm. And the male factor you had checked out and it wasn't that either.
Yep.
So it's basically just unexplained.
Yeah. No. And that
was the worst,
I was
especially
just
for type A.
That's the most frustrating part because like, and I was doing everything. I was seeing nutritionalists. I was seeing other doctors. I was like, you know, and the thing with this is like, you know, being in the business that I'm in, it's like everybody capitalizes upon everything. So it's like, everybody's like, well, go see this doctor. And I'm like, okay, great. I go see this doctor. And he's like, okay, great. You're almost ready. Let's do the extraction tomorrow. Pay me $15,000. I'm like, wait, what? Like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're all like, well, maybe he's right. Maybe this is the time I'm going to miss. And then,
and then you're like, if money's the only inhibitor, am I an asshole?
Exactly.
Can you put a price tag on this?
I know. Like and then I'm like, okay, fine, let's do this. And then like my husband and I'll get home and he's like, we don't have the money to do this. Mm-hmm. He's like, what do you, like, we can't do this. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
So heartbreaking.
And it's just everything, you know? And then I tried IUI again and that didn't work. And so finally I got to the point where I was like, let's just try to insert the embryo and they prepared me, you know, I had done all this stuff, inserted the embryo and I got pregnant. And so after all this time, like we were super excited, You know, we heard the heartbeat, we knew the sex because they had tested it before.
Sure.
Like, you know, and that's the part that, like, if I was, you know, up until now, it's just like, okay, it's disappointment after disappointment. But then, like, sorry.
No, don't be sorry, please. I'm right there with you, welling up.
But then, like, you know, you hear the heartbeat and sorry.
No, please don't apologize. This is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you hear the heartbeat, you go through all this, and you're in the doctor room, and the worst was, like, we were so excited, and then, you know, I go back, you know, because you get monitored all the time, and I go back, and all of a sudden, it was, like, the one nurse that I didn't like, of course, and she's looking at the screen and looking at everything, and she's like, she gets really quiet. She's like, okay, I need to talk to the doctor. Let's schedule an appointment for, like, in a week. And I was like, what does that mean?
What's happening?
And she's like, I can't say anything. And at this point, I was like, this was when I was, like, 3 months pregnant.
Oh, wow. How long?
Yeah. So I was 3 months pregnant at the time. And she was like, we need to schedule an appointment in a week. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What's going on? So, of course, for a week, I'm asking everybody. For a week, I'm, like, freaking out.
Oh, honey.
So, I guess.
That's the worst.
Yeah. So, I had a miscarriage. They weren't sure that that's what it was at the time. So, I was freaking out. I came back, of course, like, you know, was so upset after everything we had been through. And you know, had to have my DNC and everything else. And then the worst is, like, you know, again, I compare it to, like, everybody wanting to get money for everything. So I'm literally sitting in the operation room ready to go in. And they say to me, oh, well, do you want us to test the embryo to see if there's any issues? Because nobody could find anything wrong. You know, nobody could find anything wrong with me, Joel, embryo, sperm, like, nothing. So I was just like, you know, they're like, it's going to be $2,500. And I'm just like, why didn't you guys tell me this beforehand? I'm literally in an operating gown. Blood is running down my legs. I'm standing there, like, I'm, like, in tears. And I'm just like, I can't make this decision without my husband.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me right now? So they bring in Joel. Joel takes one look at me and he's, like, flipping out. He's just like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, how dare you do this?
Yeah.
And then it just was like insult on top of injury.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And it's the business part of it that sinks in, where you're like, oh yeah, they're trying to make money off me.
But there's
so many wonderful organizations and people and practices that aren't like that.
Yeah.
But
it just was
the
like
reality of it too.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, for sure.
They're
and
like,
so,
do you have a credit card? Sorry, I know you're bleeding.
Yeah.
But can we get your credit card real quick?
As you're about to go in and we're scraping
Where am
your
I supposed to
insides
pull it out of my cleavage?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, after that, I had tried for, I don't know, like another year or so. And it just got to the point where my body was just like, you know, I kind of had some false starts. You know, they were extracting eggs. They were making embryos. They weren't good. Like, you know, it was just kind of like this vicious cycle.
And how long had it been since you started, like, all in?
6 years.
6 years.
It was 6 yees before, like, I finally stopped. So my last extraction.
That's such a long time.
It is. It's a super long time. And especially when you're like, you know, go with work, with life, with everything else. And I'm up there all the time doing these extractions. And, you know, they're fucking painful. So it's like you come home, I'm crying because I'm upset, but then I have to put on the brave face to, like, keep doing what I'm doing and keep going with life. And then, you know, my husband had always kind of thrown in there, like, hey, why don't we just, like, we've always talked about adoption because we've always wanted to be parents. He's like, he's like, can we just start looking into adoption? And I was like, no, like, my tunnel focus. I'm like, no, we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going. So
why do you think you were like that at that point?
I think it's just because, like, I put my mind on something and I don't want to, like, deviate from, like, my path that I'm on.
Yeah,
and it's like, I was so focused on this that I didn't want to, like, throw stuff into the mix and concentrate on something else because I wanted to try, like, everything and anything. And like I said, at this point, I'm still seeing other nutritionalists. I'm still trying this. I'm trying that. I'm trying, like, you know, everything under the moon to try to make it work.
Absolutely.
And so finally, you know, and I'll never forget because we literally got in a knockdown drag out at brunch one day because he was just like, he's like, I'm tired of seeing you like this. I'm tired of seeing you. You're exhausted. He's like, it's putting a strain on us. He's like, I can't. And, you know, we've now, I mean, this is like, you know, now that fast forward, we have Zeke, it's been 8 years, but, you know, this was 2 years ago and he was just, we've been married. We've been together for 20 years, you know, I mean, we've been married for 14. So he knows me. We've been together for a very long time. He's like, I get it, Jan, but like, he goes, you got to stop, you know? And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm going to keep doing this. And he's just like, no, you really can't.
Yeah.
So
it's so hard when you're not on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. So then we started fighting, you know, and finally, like, I'll never forget because I went to get one of my last extractions and I just, you know, usually in the recovery room, I'm like, it's okay. We're all good. Business as usual. Like, let's go. And I just like broke down and was like sobbing. And my favorite nurse came up to me and she's like, I'm like, I'm sorry. She's like, Jan, don't be sorry. She goes, you're tired. She goes, you've been doing this for a long time. She's like, you're just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was, and that's what it was, you know, and that was like my breaking point.
Yeah.
And I literally came home and said to Joel, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this adoption thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in that knockdown, drag out fight at brunch before. I've been where you're like, you know, everyone's looking at you and you're like silently like cussing at each other from across the table.
Totally.
And like crying.
We
and,
weren't
like,
even like silent, I don't think, because everybody just kept
and then you
turning
go
and looking
outside.
at us. Yeah. And you know, New York City brunch, it's like everybody's packed and I'm just like, yep, okay, everybody knows our business.
No,
thanks.
I've been there for sure. It's so hard. So, okay, so then this must have felt at least maybe like a relief in some way because you have a new path. I mean, it's a whole nother daunting thing, right? Starting from scratch.
Totally. You know, it is and it isn't. It was like at the time, yes, I had a new path to focus on, but it was still like I was still mourning everything that happened. Yeah. You know? And so it was just like, you know, and I still am, obviously. But, you know.
I don't know if that ever truly goes away.
It doesn't.
It's still, you know, it's hard. It's PTSD.
Totally.
For real. Like legit.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's still, I've said this before, but there's still, when I see a Pampers commercial, I get it physically, my heart starts racing. I get this pit in my stomach because there was one that was playing on like this one show I kept watching and it was the same one and it was a baby crying and like just the noise when I was going through infertility would trigger me and now like I can't even it's crazy.
No, I get it.
How it like profoundly affects you and never really goes away. So I get it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely true. But yeah, and then, you know, we jumped into adoption and, you know, Joel was being very sweet. He was trying to he found this like counselor that was like counseled couples like us who were having, you know, the same problems, like the infertility, and now they want to adopt. And she was like counselor / social worker, I don't know, doctor, whatever she was. And so from there, he like talked to her, ended up, I had to work late one night. He went and met with her. I was supposed to go, of course, wasn't there. And she was like, told us about this adoption agency, as well as like November is National Adoption Month and they have a huge conference down in Brooklyn. Oh. That she was like, you guys should go to. It tells you everything and anything about adoption, and going to that like totally opened our eyes to the world of adoption.
Wow. Yeah. So what was that like? What was that day like?
It was so overwhelming. Literally by the end, Joel and I are like, we need a drink. But it was amazing because they have like a keynote speaker. And then it was cool because when we walked in, one of the ladies that greeted us was like, I highly suggest that you guys break off and you go to as many like sessions, you know, separately as you can. That way you can kind of divide and conquer and then come back and meet up. I mean, from that, there was a lot of things we learned. Like, there's no way in hell we could ever do this on our own. People do that. They take out like ads and papers and 1-800 numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, you mean without an agency?
Yep. Okay. Like without an agency, they just hire a lawyer. And I'm just like, absolutely not. Most adoptions nowadays are open.
What does that mean exactly?
It means like, because of the social media and because everybody can find out everything now thanks to Google, most and these kids are growing up knowing that they have birth parents somewhere, being open and honest with them from the beginning. Like Zeke, who's our son, his birth mother and I like have a relationship.
You do? Okay.
We have like in the paperwork, like she's, we have a visit once a year. She, we send her pictures every 3 months. Actually, we have an app. She can go on there anytime she wants to see pictures. Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, unless the records are sealed for some reason, most adoptions are open, because listening to a lot of people speak about adoption that are adults now, and actually once we adopted, we found out so many of our friends had been adopted and told us about this and told us about like how they feel now, because some of them know their birth parents, some of them don't. Some of them want to have stuff to do with them. So it's just so
you didn't
interesting.
know that before, that some of these people were adopted? Isn't that funny how people come out of the woodwork when something like this happens? Yeah,
definitely.
How did you determine which agency to work with?
There was a lot of things. These two guys in our building had adopted a little girl, and that was kind of like our first introduction into like adoption. And they told us about their agency. At the time when we went to look into it, their agency was gone. So this happens a lot. Also, I wanted an agency that was going to be like non-for-profit, LGBTQ friendly, one that was like going to be caring and loving. I work with slick agencies every day of my life. I didn't want it in my private life. Yeah. So I was kind of like, those were my parameters. So this woman had told us about this one agency, the doctor, and then we had actually gone to this conference. It's literally like a job fair. You go into the gymnasium, all these agencies are set up. You walk around and you look at all of them and you talk to them. But our agency actually was the only one that had like these colorful balloons flying from their booth. And, they were so friendly and happy. And we walked over and I was like, Jill, that's the agency she told us about.
Oh, wow.
And we had gone over and talked to them, and they were so nice and so friendly and so warm. And I was just like, that's it. I want to go with them. Yeah. And he's like, okay, hold on.
Right.
And so we did some research. It's cool because they have this Get Acquainted workshop. So the next step for them was like, we contacted them. They had us go to this thing in Brooklyn. They have these meetings all over the place. It's kind of like a weekend meeting where you get to know them, what they do, how they do it, because we started doing all this research on adoption because we had no idea how this worked.
Right.
We had no idea. I mean, and granted, we had already taken out a home equity loan to do all this fertility for all these years. We had just paid it off. When we were like, great, now we're going into adoption.
Totally.
So here we go all over again,
right.
But the thing is about adoption, I mean, and this is, somebody had said this to me and I'm just like, you're right. They were like, you could keep trying to have a baby for a long time. In the end, with adoption, like you were going to have a baby. Which is in the end, like there's so many babies that need to be loved. There's so many kids that end up in the foster system and everything else. And we had actually looked into the foster system, but like I couldn't emotionally put myself through that because you could foster a kid and then lose them. So I was like, emotionally, I can't do that. I can't handle that. Like we have to go through with adoption, which has its own pitfalls, but you know, that was like a big glaring thing.
Right.
So with this conference, it actually like opened our eyes to so much. So it was like, I was an expert on fertility and now I was like, I'm going to become an expert in adoption.
Right.
So skipping back ahead, we went to this Get Acquainted workshop weekend, which was great because we hear from birth mothers, we hear from adoptive parents. They are very transparent and lay out like how they find these parents. They have a really great website and you make a profile and they work with Planned Parenthood. They work with hospitals. They work with all these kind of, outreach all over the place that girls go on there. I mean, for lack of a better crass, it's like dating, like they see you and who you are from this profile, and so we, but it was good because they were honest with us. You know what I mean? Because it's like at this point, there's no bullshit. It's just like, you need the brass tacks. Like, tell me how it is, and this is how it goes. And it's not easy because with adoption, they prepare you too. It's like the mother could be a drug addict. The mother could have, a drinking problem, and they're not always transparent. And, there aren't always hospitals that are adoption friendly. So you know, there's so many different things that can happen, which is scary as hell. But at the same time, like, this is the reality of adoption, you know?
Yeah.
So from there, we started to just like set up our profile. It's such a daunting process. You have to get fingerprinted. You have to get your marriage certificate. You have to list the last 20 places you've lived in your life. It's just like, I mean, it's great that they're very thorough like this, vetting. But oh my gosh, I was like insane. You know, and then there's the home visits and you get all paranoid because, like, you know, we have taxidermies and, like, you know, skulls all over our house. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate us. Yeah. I'm like, I mean, our house is like Gothic Victorian, you know? So I'm just kind of, our apartment. So I'm just kind of like, great. Like, is this not okay? And it was cool because we had actually gotten on the phone with 2 guys who had adopted and they were like, guys, don't worry about the home visit. It's all cool. Like, it's good. They just want to get to know you. So I'm like, okay, good. That makes me feel so much better. Because I tell everybody that now. You know what I mean?
You're like putting sheets over the taxidermy.
Totally.
Like, what's under that sheet? Don't worry about it. Nothing, nothing.
That bat skeleton? No, not what you think it is.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so then from there, we just started our, again, journey, which Cliff Note version was a year long. We had a couple, you know, again, like a couple false starts. We had talked to a couple birth mothers, you know. One, I think she wasn't really sold on adoption, but she kind of wanted to talk to some people. She wanted us to name the baby what she wanted to name her. This happens a lot too. Like, it's a make or break sometimes. The birth mothers are like, you have to name the child this name.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like, if you don't do this, it can become like a problem.
Whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
it goes into legal documents. And we were just kind of like, okay, like, we weren't wild on the name. We weren't like really, kind of didn't vibe with her, but we were like, you know, whatever. Because you also like, and again, this is the thing with like adoption, because you have to be, you know, you have to meet these mothers where they're at. You know, this is really fucking hard for them too. So you have to keep that in mind, that like, it's an emotional thing for both of you. And so you're very careful like what to say, and like, you don't call it like their child or your child, like, and it's good because the adoption agency like coaches you on this, but at the same time you're kind of like, wait, did I say the wrong thing? Am I saying the wrong thing? You're second guessing yourself like this whole entire time. So you just try to be yourself and you talk and you hope that you're saying the right thing. But then we talked to another birth mom. We had a couple conversations with her. We thought it was really going great. Never heard from her again. She fell off. So this happened twice, you know, over probably 9 months.
Again, the emotional roller coaster of it all, right? Because you're getting your hopes up.
Well, and that's the thing.
You start picturing your life with this kid. Yeah.
But I mean, we never got anything in the house ready. I never had any baby stuff. Like, all the stuff that like my friends had kind of given me, like, it's going to happen, like little onesies and shoes and stuff. Like, it's going to happen. I threw them in a drawer and I was just like, I can't. I can't see this. I don't want a reminder. I don't want anything. So all that to say, fast forward to like 9 months and Joel's like, I can't do this anymore. He's like, he's like, emotionally, we've been through so much shit at this point. He's like, I just don't know how much more I can take. And I'm like, I'm the same way. And it was getting to be a year. So once a year is up, you have to do everything all over again.
Wow.
You have to do your fingerprinting, your physical, like everything. Because it only lasts with the courts for a year.
Okay. And then, sorry if this is, you don't have to say, but do you have to pay again after a year, or does it? With our agency, the agency fees stay good,
which is great. And they're
I imagine there's some that don't.
Yes, and that's the thing. I mean, sorry to jump back, when we went to this Get Acquainted workshop, there was like tables of people, and that's another great thing about our agency. They only take 20 people on at a time. So they were sitting at a table, and there was a couple across from us, and they were just like, we've been with our agency for 4 years and we're one of like 100, and like there's no like hope in sight. And I was like, that's horrible. So we had also met these girls that had already adopted through this agency that were there because they saw us and they were like, you guys look stressed. And we're like, well, it's a little overwhelming. She's like, I know. I'm like, do you have a drink? And she's like, let's go down the street and get a drink. He's like, okay, well, let's wait till after. And she was just like really sweet and very like down to earth, and she's just like, I want to tell you that these guys are great. We're coming back for the second time, and it's just like pretty amazing.
Oh, that's good.
So that made us feel good too. So jumping ahead,
coming up on a year,
and then we got this call from our agency who basically said to us, there's this girl who is, this was literally middle of April. She's due May 14th. And she's really interested in you guys. She doesn't want to talk to you. She wants you to. She wants you guys to communicate over email.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, great, even better, because so much shit can get misconstrued from email,
Emails.
text, like everything else.
The tone and
yes,
all that.
exactly. So she wrote us this huge email, basically saying, I've been going to the doctor on a regular basis. I'm together with the birth dad, but he wants to keep the baby. I don't. I know that I have a 6-year-old daughter. Joel and I went to write back, and she basically laid everything out for us. We went to write her back, and this is like another knockdown, drag out. Joel and I get in because we're like trying to write this huge letter.
Right.
We're like, what do we say? Do we say this? Do we say that? Like, we don't, you know what I mean? And we're back and forth forever to the point where like a day later, the agency's like, are you guys going to write her back?
Right.
We're like, we are. We're
trying.
Working on
it's
it.
Hard.
We were so
it's like
stressed.
the most important email you're going to send.
100%.
Yeah.
So we got so stressed. Anyway, ended up writing her back. We were emailing back and forth like all weekend long. By that next week, she's like, the agency was like, she wants you to be the parents.
Wow.
And I was actually flying out to LA for an event that next week. So literally I had 3 weeks until I was going on maternity.
Oh my God.
I have a department of 14 people. I'm like, everybody knew I was adopting, but nobody knew when this was going to happen,
Right.
So I'm literally in LA, like on the phone with my lawyer. My lawyer's like spewing all this stuff at us, like, okay, this is how we do it. Like, this is what has to happen,
Right.
and I literally had to talk to HR before I left. I had to like put everything in place,
Right.
like with my team, with everything else. Because
what do they do in terms of maternity leave when you adopt? Do you get
it's the same thing.
It's the same. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
good.
that's the way it should be.
That's-
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I'm really thankful that my company did that because, I don't know how it is with all companies.
I don't think
but-
all companies are like that.
and they probably aren't, but you know what? That's the way it is. Like, I am a mom. I am getting a baby. I didn't birth the baby, but like, I am in the
Doesn't matter.
hospital.
Yeah.
Like I was in the hospital from the second that baby was born because she was having a C-section.
Okay.
And we knew like when the baby was born, so we had to be up there in the hospital. And actually, because she was giving birth in a Catholic hospital, they were amazing to us. They gave us our own hospital room. They treated us. When I walked in, they're like, we're treating you guys like you're the birth mom and like you have your own room. They were amazing, above and beyond, like incredible.
That's great.
So all that to say, Zeke was born. We got him immediately after he was born. But these are the like, you start to worry about everything because in New York State, the birth mom has 30 days to change her mind. The hospital was so amazing to us and so great.
So you got to stay there with him, and
we were living in the hospital for a week. He's totally healthy, beautiful. Like everybody always tells me like how amazing and beautiful he is. And it's kind of ironic because he looks a little bit like me. Wow. Everybody's like, I know this seems a little crazy, but he looks like you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's just crazy how the whole thing comes full circle.
Can you tell me about that 30-day period? Like,
so
that must
that's
have been treacherous.
That's one of the most painful things in New York, and it depends on the state that you're in. It fluctuates.
Yeah.
So New York City, it's 30 days, and it's painful because it's if your baby is born like on a Friday, it's then weekends don't count.
What?
So
Why?
so I think I don't know, it's like a legal thing.
Oh my God.
So I was always like, okay, so this is the 30-day on this Friday, and my lawyer was like, well, the paperwork has to go through, so actually it probably is going to get pushed to Monday. And I'm like,
oh my God,
you guys are killing me. And at this time, because when I had gotten pregnant, because we were so excited, we told too many people about it, and that's always the thing that you have to be
it's hard to unwind all
that. Of course. So everybody knew that this was happening, but at the same time, we were trying to kind of contain it, even though like everybody at work knew and everybody else. But I'd always tell everybody, look, guys, there's a 30-day period that she can change her mind in New York State, but you have to prove like you have to have a whole plan. You know, you have to have a plan of how you can take care of this child and how you can, you know, do all this kind of stuff. She was always like, I'm so glad I can make you a mom. Like, I'm so thankful I can do this. I know he's better off with you guys. Yeah. Like, I was hoping that was going to stay and stick, but it's just like that's in the back of your mind for 30 days.
Could you talk to her? Like, I would have been go in there and be like, girl,
well,
listen to me.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't want to.
You are not going to change your mind.
Seriously, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to do anything because you hear all these horror stories that it happens all the time, you know?
It's
and
so hard.
We were like sitting on eggshells. Meanwhile, I'm like a mom with a newborn who's like, you know, it's like a regular newborn. It's like, I'm not sleeping. I'm an emotional wreck. Right. You know what I mean? Yes. And I have this 30 days looming over my head.
Oh my God.
And meanwhile, I come home and I'm just like, we go to Tribeca Pediatrics and I'm just like trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, I want to feed him the best formula because like I'm not breastfeeding. So like, you know, and I'm doing all this research and being crazy. And you know, there's that crazy German formula that you can only like order from Germany and all this kind of insane stuff.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. It's just like this, whatever. It's got this whole stigma behind it. And it's so funny because I was driving my husband crazy about it. No. So literally he's like, let's talk to the doctor. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we go into the doctor and I'm just like, okay, so this is all the deal. This is where he came from. I want to give him a great start to life. Like, I want to give him everything. Like, what about this formula? And my husband is sitting there shaking his head and rolling his eyes. And she's like, we just had a meeting about this. Everybody is crazy about this formula. She's like, don't worry. You don't have to feed him that. And my husband's like, see, I told you. So he had, you know, organic.
Yeah, formula has come a long way.
100%. It's like mother's breast milk, 100%. Really, so I was like, okay, fine. Yeah. And I don't have to order it from Germany and wait in case you run out. And it's insane.
You're like, we need the Gothic formula.
Can we please have the
it's
one?
Very on brand. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So then the 30 days when that was finally up,
yeah,
that must have been.
So we were so ecstatic. I think I bawled crying, literally. It was just crazy. So it was like a huge celebration because then you have to wait for like, you know, like we got enough stuff to have a baby, but then I was so scared to like.
You don't want to get too much.
Right. I didn't want to redo his room. Right. And I didn't want to get everything because I'm like, what if like he changes his mind? You know, I'm always like cautious.
Right. Did you get the baby bat skeleton for above the crib?
Yeah,
we waited on that.
I know. That's later. But yeah, so then after that, like it was a huge celebration. So I'm like, great, now we can schedule. We called it a sip and see, you know. So now we did a sip and see, and then work had a huge like, you know, celebration for us. So and it was really awesome. I mean, it was such a long road and we were so fucking tired that like at that point, it was like you forget everything, you know. I have this amazing child who it's like you don't think of them as like an adopted child. Like he's my son. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And
from minute one.
Exactly. 100%.
From before that.
Yeah.
Hey again, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Janna. Janna, I love you. I'm so happy for you and your hubby and little Zeke. Thank you so much for your honesty and sharing your story with everybody. I also wanted to say that I saw a post today that said, everyone's complaining that their life is currently on pause, but nobody realizes that this is how infertile people live daily. So obviously this was in response to coronavirus and what's going on right now with the quarantine, but I thought that really resonated with me, and it's so true. The fucking waiting is the hardest part, and the being on pause. So if you are currently going through that, just know that I've been there and I remember that feeling, and I feel for you and I'm rooting for you, and it's going to be okay. We're going to get out of this, and I just love you all. So if anyone needs to talk, you can always email me at infertileafstories@gmail.com. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.